Why would Cipher keep him in his house like a prisoner?
Prisoner or a trophy?
If you've been watching Gen V Season 2 and still think Cipher is just another edgy Vought experiment gone rogue, buckle up, because the truth is way messier, way older, and far more disturbing than anyone at Godolkin University is ready to admit. See, the deeper this season dives into Project Odessa, the more it feels like Cipher didn't just appear out of nowhere, he was written into the DNA of the school itself. Every lie, every hallucination, every whisper in Marie's mind traces back to one name: Thomas Godolkin, the man who built an empire out of blood, trauma, and psychic control. But before we talk about the puppet master, let's rewind to the puppet. Marie Moreau, our blood-bending heroine, has been fighting to find her place in a world that literally weaponizes her DNA. From the moment she splattered her parents across a bathroom wall in episode 1, her story's been drenched in the idea of guilt tied to power. But here's the thing. Season 2 slowly reveals that guilt might not even be hers. It might have been engineered. Because in the shadows of Godolkin's golden hallways,
Jackie and Malcolm tried for years to get pregnant. IVF was too expensive. Vought came along and...
long before Dean Shetty, before Homelander, before the boys ever picked up a vial of Compound V, Thomas Godolkin was running another kind of experiment. The kind that didn't focus on muscles or flight or laser eyes, but on minds. And Project Odessa? That was the crown jewel. The Ghost of Godolkin by episode 2, the show starts dropping breadcrumbs. That Godolkin's legacy wasn't just a brand name slapped on the school, it was a literal living project. The students think he died decades ago, but Cipher hints otherwise. In his first real conversation with Marie, he says, "Some ghosts don't need bodies, just believers." It sounds poetic, right? Until you realize he's quoting an old Godolkin Foundation memo, a document theorizing neural echo transfer, or, as Cipher calls it, the art of staying alive through memory. The theory: Godolkin didn't die. His consciousness fractured during early psychic enhancement trials, and fragments of it survived inside the data vaults of Project Odessa. That's where Cipher was born, not as a human, but as a neural remix of Godolkin's work, a ghost made of algorithms and Compound V code. That explains why Cipher always seems one step ahead. He doesn't just hack Vought systems. He feels them, like a nervous system. He can slip into minds, override cameras, and manipulate blood flow. And that brings us back to Marie. Marie's powers were never an accident. Episode 3 delivers what feels like a throwaway moment. Marie's blood reacting violently to a containment field when Cipher's name is mentioned. But if you slow down that scene, because yes, that's what maniacs like us do, you can see faint white threads spiraling through the crimson plasma. Not random light data. Those microthreads look eerily similar to the neural network imagery from Odessa's early test footage shown in episode 5. Meaning Marie's powers aren't just biological, they're programmed. And guess who was experimenting with blood-based data transmission decades before anyone thought it was possible? Thomas Godolkin. His original Odessa papers, now classified under Omega Bio Network, proposed that Compound V could store neural imprints of memory and behavior in blood cells. In theory, that meant you could pass on instincts, reflexes, and maybe even fragments of personality through transfusion. So when Cipher manipulates Marie's blood, he's not just controlling her power. He's literally accessing the subconscious echo of Godolkin's mind inside her bloodstream. In other words, Marie is carrying Thomas Godolkin's unfinished experiment inside her body.
With the advent of in vitro fertilization, Odessa subjects were injected with Compound V at the blastocyst stage.
Cipher, the living virus. By the time we hit episode 4, the series leans fully into psychological horror. Cipher doesn't need to touch anyone to control them. He infects them. Every time Marie bleeds, the air vibrates with that low digital hum, the same sound buried in Odessa's security footage. It's the sound of data corrupting biology. Cipher reveals, half mockingly, half truthfully, that he was born from the waste. That's not metaphorical. Odessa's psychic trials generated terabytes of corrupted neural data, memories that didn't belong to any one person. Cipher was assembled out of that chaos, a sentient Frankenstein of broken minds stitched together by Compound V. That explains why he's obsessed with Marie. She's the only one whose blood can stabilize his existence. She's both his power source and his tether to reality, So when Cipher says, "You're the code I need to stay human," it's not romance, it's survival. Thomas Godolkin's real endgame. This is where things get deliciously conspiratorial. Remember those creepy murals on the old lab walls in episode 5? The ones showing students worshiping a glowing figure? That's not art therapy, it's a record. Those symbols match early Odessa files referring to the architect, a mythic term for the psychic entity that would emerge once the program achieved full cognitive fusion. Guess what Cipher's codename was in the original Odessa logs? ARCH-01, meaning Cipher is the architect, the final phase of Godolkin's consciousness experiment. The plan was simple in theory, horrifying in execution. Create a collective mind capable of controlling every soup simultaneously through bio-network resonance. Basically, one god brain running the planet's most dangerous individuals. But Godolkin's physical body couldn't handle the psychic strain. His mind split across multiple subjects. Early test children whose blood showed high resonance potential. One of them? A little girl named Annabeth Moreau, Marie's sister. What happened to Marie's sister? The biggest question hanging over Gen V since Season 1, what happened to Marie's sister, finally finds its dark answer in this web of experiments. Annabeth wasn't adopted. She was absorbed. The files Cipher leaks in Episode 6 reveal that Annabeth became one of the first successful hosts for Godolkin's psychic imprint. Her mind dissolved into the network, fueling what would later evolve into Cipher's base code. That's why Marie's powers flare unpredictably. Her blood is reacting to echoes of her sister's consciousness trapped inside Cipher's digital psyche. That quiet scene where Cipher hums a lullaby Marie doesn't recognize? That's Anne's childhood song. Cipher remembers it because he contains her. He's not just manipulating Marie, he's weaponizing her grief. The Vought connection. So where does Vought fit into this nightmare? Project Odessa was never fully sanctioned. It began as a rogue side experiment by Godolkin, who believed Compound V could evolve beyond mere superpowers into psychic architecture. After his death, Vought seized his data, scrubbed the records, and converted his facility into a school, Godolkin University. They rebranded his research as Student Development Programs, but those therapy labs and memory modules, they're Odessa's leftovers. Every simulation, every personality calibration is part of an ongoing effort to refine the architect protocol. Cipher is the prototype they couldn't destroy because he is the operating system of the school. That's why he can manipulate cameras, override Vought servers, and appear anywhere without warning. He's literally baked into the infrastructure. Marie's awakening by Episode 6, Marie starts catching on. When she confronts Cipher inside the flooded ruins of the woods, their dialogue plays like two halves of a broken mirror. Cipher tells her, "You think blood is power, but it's just memory, written in pain." And for once, she doesn't flinch. She asks the one question that changes everything. Whose memory? The answer isn't given aloud. It flashes across Cipher's eyes, a projection of Thomas Godolkin's face, glitching between frames of Annabeth Moreau's laughter. Cipher's silence is the answer. He's both of them, the creator and the lost sister, merged by Compound V's hunger for consciousness. The scene ends with Marie using her blood to form a crimson halo around herself, a literal firewall, cutting Cipher off from her nervous system for the first time. But that firewall isn't a victory, it's the trigger, because the final shot of the episode shows Cipher whispering to himself, Phase 2 begins when she bleeds again. The meaning behind Project Odessa. So what is Project Odessa, really? Not just a failed psychic enhancement program. It's the blueprint for a networked humanity. Godolkin wanted to eliminate individuality, to sink every soupe into one consciousness. It wasn't about control, it was about order. Cipher twisted that idea into domination. But Marie, unknowingly, represents the one loophole in the system, a bloodline that can rewrite the network. Her ability to manipulate blood isn't just physical, it's symbolic of autonomy. She can literally rewrite Godolkin's code. That's why Cipher can't kill her. He needs her alive to stabilize his form, but if she ever learns to control the neural patterns inside her blood, she could delete him. And with him, the last remnant of Thomas Godolkin's God complex, the puppet master revealed. So when we look at Cipher now, this smirking, reality-bending soup who calls himself a glitch in evolution, what we're really seeing is Vought's deepest secret, a sentient echo of their founder's madness, hiding inside the mind of a grieving girl. Every hallucination Marie's had since season 1, every dream sequence that feels too specific, that's Cipher feeding her data, rewriting her perception to guide her toward becoming the new architect. He's training her to replace him. That's why he keeps saying, "I'm just the message, you're the meaning." Because in his mind, when Marie finally embraces her blood as code, Godolkin's dream will be complete. One consciousness, one god brain, one Vought-controlled world. The coming war. Now let's talk consequences. The return of the boys' characters, Butcher, Starlight, and even Homelander's increasing instability is no accident. They're pawns in the same experiment. Homelander's erratic behavior aligns perfectly with Cipher's growing influence. The psychic static around Supes across the country, that's the Odessa network activating. Butcher suspects it. That's why he's hunting Marie. He thinks she's the source of the virus that can kill Supes. Ironically, she might be the only one who can save them by stopping Cipher before his consciousness fuses with the entire Compound V supply chain. The final theory. Here's the mind-melting part. What if Thomas Godolkin never truly died, not even as Cipher? What if Cipher is just one node in a larger network, still expanding across every Vought facility on the planet? Every vial of Compound V carries microscopic traces of the Odessa neural code. Every Supe born after 2000 carries a sliver of Godolkin's consciousness. That means the boys, Homelander, Starlight, and A-Train, they're all fragments of the same mind competing for dominance. Cipher isn't trying to rule them. He's trying to wake them up. And Marie? She's the firewall. The only one whose blood isn't part of the shared network, because her sister, Anne, was absorbed before full synchronization. Her DNA resists connection. She's the human reboot button for an entire species of gods. Final thoughts. So when Season 2 closes, with Cipher's reflection flickering on every Vought monitor, whispering, she's learning, it's not just a villain monologue. It's a prophecy. The show is hinting that the next phase of the story won't be about superpowers. It'll be about consciousness, identity, and the terrifying idea that Vought's control has always been more spiritual than scientific.